the actual lesson. So
Tony, you can record us. We are stars.
Yeah, well, you're a star for sure, right? I mean, your background is not so starish, but so, if I may say. But yeah, so as you can see, I am. You can see that on my next to my name, there's a little red button. You can see that I am recording. So let's go right ahead into this. So this is lesson 3 and 4. I combined them, and I hid some slides, like I said, but you have access to it now, so you can see which slides I hid, and really it's just information, extra information about the subject matter, because I really want to break you out in rooms. And as you can see, there's not everyone is here. Hold on a second. Yeah, not everyone is here, and so we're going to break you out anyway. I do have the groups right here, and I'll easily break you out after I give you this lesson. So let me just share the screen, and we'll get going with this material. Okay, pointer, no captions. Where are we? Just one sec. I got too many screens. There we go. All right, so this is it's still competency 2, of course, but this is lesson 3, and we're going to do lesson 4 also in this, the principles of customer service. And like I said, once you're in the groups, if you have any breakout rooms, when you have all your questions about the assignments and all that, we can go over it. But I want to spend as much time as possible there and less time here. So I have abridged the lesson itself, but by recording it, you will have access to it afterwards. And later on, of course, all the time, it's going to be posted. So you'll have access to it, and you can refer to it all the time. Right. So far we looked at different subjects, of course, topics, I should say, in this competency, right? Customer service strategy of a company or a business. We looked at to understand the importance of feedback in customer service, the importance of building loyalty. We talked about that. We're going to talk about that too, and also the perspective from the side of a company itself is another topic that we briefly looked at, right? So we're going to look at strategy in business, right? In days like what we're looking for, as it says, it's no longer enough just to target chosen customers, right? For businesses to stay ahead, for sure, they need to create a certain value and experience for all their customers. This is what goes on in sales all the time. And I think we touched base on this a little bit about how companies do value their customers all the time, certainly, but their attitude towards their customers needed to get a huge refresh, if you want to call it that, versus how it was done for the longest of time. And the idea that if a business brings value to a customer, right, and can create certain experiences, well, then it does create also loyalty for sure. So this is a strategy that happens more and more right now, right? And it's a thorough plan is to handle for sure customer interactions and to provide a consistent experience throughout all the business affairs or the customer has with the actual organization or business, right? So what that really means certainly is that you want something to be as consistent as possible. It has to be relative as possible, right? And it certainly has to bring value all the time. We're going to go back to, you're going to see, we're always talking about the same words. in customer service, in sales, in marketing. It's always the same language. It's it's expectations, it's perception, it's value, it's communication, the value of learning how to communicate properly. Something I don't think we're going to do in this class and in this competency, but we're certainly going to probably look at the value of understanding different customers or different communication styles. This is something maybe you've seen before or heard before, but that is really critical in how we communicate with customers. Is what is their style? Understanding a perspective of their style, so we can certainly. The word that's always been used is adapt, and to me, adapt is certainly the wrong word. It's more like adopt, which sounds more in context of what we want to do, right? To adapt means exactly what, the definition of adapt is to change, and to change certainly, or to become something else is not something we want to do, because it's very, and you'll see this when we get into more competencies also. We're going to talk about the value or the understanding of stress in customer service, in sales, in relationships with customers. And certainly if we adapt, the stress levels that we create are a lot higher than we want them to be. Dealing with customers on a regular basis, talking to different people all the time, creates a lot of stress. And we certainly want to not necessarily eliminate stress, because there's two types of stress, and of course there's the good stress that we could use. But the idea certainly is to have a neutral value in your everyday life when you're dealing with customers that brings a consistency. Getting back to what it says, right? So what we're really pushing to get is to be consistent. And certainly if we have a lot of highs and lows, in our bodies, and our chemicals, our testosterone, which is certainly got to do with power, and cortisol has to do with stress and nervousness. If those two are imbalanced, it creates a lot of issues for us as individuals, and we need to balance those out. And in sales and customer service, all that is relative to customers and business. The idea always is to have a consistent understanding of what the customer wants, but also a consistent understanding of how we see or how we handle interactions with customers. So stress is a dangerous factor, and the more we can balance it and neutralize it, we can't get rid of it. The more we can neutralize it, the more consistent we have, and the more the customer sees through all this. And it is a very good strategy to always find a way to balance, right? So loyalty comes through that. Loyalty comes through customers that come back, of course, and spend more money and refer their friends, right? And they always leave positive customer reviews. But this is something that we need to do as customer services, to build this from the very beginning. And it's the rationale is always, it starts with how you approach, how you talk, how you answer, and the more you answer consistently, the easier it is for everyone, especially you, when you're working in customer service. So I find that to be very important, right? So, I have a question here that's been put. So how can a business make this happen, right? If you have any examples of how a business can make a strategy, I just gave you one. Certainly, they have to understand the value of reducing stress in a workplace, reducing stress between an interaction with customers, right? But what else do you think can be done to make customers more loyal and consistent, their experience. What else do you think can be done?
Tony, I believe obtaining always feedback from the clients.
Yeah.
That will tell us what actually the client's looking for, any areas of improvement that we can do, so that will impact positively on the clients.
Would you have an example?
Well, I will just take example from my previous career, being hoteliers. Always conducting upon checkout of any clients, providing nowadays we're sending an email just to kind of feedback, kind of survey, or at the reception upon checkout, you just ask the clients how was the stay, how the experience in total. Listening to clients and here where we have like kind of data where we go next.
Yeah, for sure.
That's in short, actually. I mean, it's a lot of
yeah,
things.
Absolutely. But you hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, feedback for sure is critical. In the way we always want to relate to customers or interactions with customers when it comes to feedbacks. Of course, we're going to talk about it later on in the next lesson is surveys and how we do surveys and the importance of doing surveys for sure. But also what comes into play often enough is certain respect that you need to always uphold when it comes to ethics. And that is certainly a principle that's really critical in customer service, is to always uphold your policies of your business and have always respect that. And that's the other thing also that creates this negotiation tool, which we call, you know, win-win situation, where a customer certainly does never get you don't get an upper hand, they don't get an upper hand, and we create an environment where everyone leaves happy. We don't want a win-lose situation or lose-win situation. We're always striving to get a win-win by, of course, respecting, you know, policy, by respecting the customer, by searching for all the time to better the customer experience. Right. So customer service strategies, training and recruiting the right people. There again, the use of the word right certainly leaves a lot for questioning. Certainly, what's a right person and what's a wrong person. My idea all the time is always that skills that you have, hard skills that you have, can be learned by anyone. But the tougher ones to always attain is always the soft skills, the attitude, certainly, the ability to listen, the ability to be positive, which is really incredible, very difficult to do. But there's so many other aspects that in today's world. I don't want to go in too deep about this, but if you want to know more about this, we can talk about it later on. Time for sure it is on our side. Is that there's a lot of businesses today that when they look for right people, certainly they're looking at different things and specific things. And one of the things they look for is recruiting people that might have this narcissistic value in them, or sociopathic value, which is called passive aggressiveness. And passive aggressiveness is a killer, excuse the term, but it really is in a business, because it really destroys and erodes the direction that you want to take a company. It erodes the attitude that you want to build. And passive aggressiveness really is a terrible thing that's been happening in companies for a very, very long time, and still happening at different levels. But when they're recruiting nowadays, they look for that. They look for anyone that has that passive aggressiveness style. Another word they use nowadays is gaslighting, but gaslighting is a little bit more, harder to pick and choose and or decipher. But passive aggressiveness, you can see it in many ways. Just the idea, a good example is gossip, right? So you hire someone new, or and you gossip about them, and you can say things about how they're dressed, or oh, that person's always late, or little things that erode slowly the relationships that you've built, or try to create. And this is one thing that companies train today, is to eliminate passive aggressiveness, which is extremely difficult in companies, right? But to build company culture, there is no other way. You need to look for that. And as we say, excuse the expression, but we have to nip it in the bud, and before it blooms, because once it's bloomed, it's too late. It's all over the place. It really is something that is almost viral in companies when it starts, in how people talk about other people, how people talk about management, and all of that. So those aspects of company culture have to be clear from day one. The policies that are instilled in everyone that works in a company has to be addressed immediately as priority number one, which is not done in a lot of companies, unfortunately. And they live with that, with that erosion, and which creates a lot of issues. So as it says there, I think what the slide really wants to say about the right person is a right person that has the ability to be proactive, have a good attitude, understand, listen, empathy for sure, and all of that, but also to adapt to company culture, right? That is, you can't avoid it. You're going to go work for someone. It's a company. A lot of people walk into companies and associate themselves with people that are a lot like them, and figure, well, they're going to become friends, and they're going to grow together. They're going to go to lunch together, and all of that, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But if you do have these kind of relationships with the coworkers, and you take it to a certain level where you do have this sense of discussing stuff about work, and in a setting outside of work, a restaurant, your own home, in a bar or something, or online, on a Facebook page or whatever, this is what creates a lot of animosity between employees. And really, they need to be trained not to do this. And today's world, they do this. They have to do this because they understand the value of trying to keep employees and the right, and keeping employees, but also keeping the right employees, right? For sure. Well, we can talk about all day about passive aggressiveness in companies, and I can give you some more examples after if you like. Right. So happy staff, again, we talk about happy staff. We talk about a staff that looks out for itself, a staff that has certain recognition and development programs instilled in them to attain all the time, right? And again, you are doing a job, and in the job, there are certain things that you always have to do. And certainly, you want to create an atmosphere where everybody is safe. You want to create an atmosphere that everyone can give their opinions. And also, you want to instill a certain culture where things like listening are crucial, right? And in a lot of places, they're not. I've been working for a very long time for a lot of companies in sales. I worked in sales for 25, 30 years, and seen it all. I mean, it's seen all, in sales meetings and management, how management sometimes needs to instill this in their sales teams, and they don't. And it starts at the top. right? I just touched on ethics a little bit before, but ethics is really that foundation at the bottom, that if you erode that with passive aggressiveness, gossip, hearsay, all this stuff that happens, attitude, and if that is accepted by management, well, that erodes that ethical foundation, and forget it. It's just not going to work. And companies do suffer enormously just based upon their lack of ethics and values at the very bottom of the scale. So to be very happy, ethics are as crucial as it gets, right? And of course, if you're happy, if no one talks bad about you in companies, if everyone is looking out for themselves and you have a positive attitude, certainly you're not going to leave, right? And turnover will be lower, and certainly you'll be able to promote from inside. You don't have to always hire someone to promote. So the actual company itself certainly goes ahead, not just from their personnel, but also when you talk about customers and creating business, it starts there too, right? Retaining customers less cost effective for sure, right? Little customers tend to be more profitable. Yes and no. I would think that this is mostly true, that customers are more profitable. But more importantly, with loyal customers, of course, you get more feedback, and of course, you have a good base of understanding of how to improve products and services, right? This last one here, though, about being more forgiving, I have a tendency not to agree with that because I don't want my customers to forgive me. Do you? Right? I don't know if you want that, where, okay, I'm a customer, I'm going to forgive. I don't think that's the right language to use when it comes to customer service. If you're at a point where a customer has to forgive you, there is certainly a lot of things you have to do at that stage in your business. You cannot accept your business the way it is if you accept the fact that if you have a culture in your business, right, business culture in your business that allows room for customers to, or the ability or the chance for customers to be, for customers to forgive you, and that's accepted in your overall scheme of things. I don't know. I would think that you're going in the wrong direction if that is part of it, right? We need to eliminate that. We don't need to have customers forgiving us. We need to be better than that from the very beginning, right? That's my point.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. Sorry that I interrupt you. May I come back after 10? May I come back after 10 minutes?
Yes, absolutely, sure.
Thank you.
And like I said before, right, management needs to lead the ball, and it's very simple. We always follow management, and if you ever worked, and you're always going to remember your manager, and we always classify them. If you just think about your managers or your bosses, as we call them. Of course, we don't want to use that word anymore. If you just think about your managers for a split second, and of course classify them right away. Were they good or not? Right. That's the first thing we do. Oh, I had a good manager. Oh, I've had a good, excellent. Oh, I've had horrible manager. Right. So us as we always look up at the hierarchy, the scale of a company, and we always look at what's above us. And certainly we always have to grade them. We grade them automatically, just like we grade everything, but we grade managers very, okay, they're a good manager, bad manager, and for specific reasons that they are not. So it is very subjective how we look at management, and it's very subjective how managers look at us, but it shouldn't be. Managers should not look at us subjectively. managers should have a very objective perspective of their sales staff and people. In other words, treat everybody as much as possible the same way, and not pick and choose what to say positively and pick and choose what to say negatively, right? I believe in that. I believe that management needs to have a very objective overall plan on how they see the business, but how they want you to see the business, not just, hey, you see it that way, you see it this way, right? They really have to have an understanding and communicate that to their staff. And this is what I was telling you about communication styles, right? The ability to communicate with everyone at the same level is objectiveness, right? And that's what you want to do. And this is how you create or instill a commitment from the very top that management will always respect and treat everyone the same way, right? And of course, management always has to have a relative message to their staff and pass on information to them and keep them relative and about what the company has to do. So again, right? If you just think for a second, in the past, have you had most of your managers were good, or is there always one that stands out that, let's say not they were bad, but let's say they could have been a little bit better, right? And what are the reasons why? And most of the time is because they probably treated you or treated the staff not at the same height, right? That's one of the reasons. And what an aspect of how we instill soft skills in people and workers is to teach them a very simple, basic soft skill. No, it's not a very basic soft skill. Very difficult, very hard, very time-consuming soft skill that everyone needs to instill in themselves is to how to listen and how to understand what that means, and how to ask questions, the ability not to give up on their questions and understand that their questions are important, right? So listening, of course, is two ways, right? When you work in sales, it's always two ways, of course, and it's always two ways when you are with a manager. So a manager has to listen. As much as you have to listen to the manager cannot be empowered. Because this is what it's all about, is power. When I talked before about passive aggressiveness and how companies are structured and how we see ourselves, and all of this is always a question of power. And if you want to remain ethical all the time, is always to understand who has the power and how they use the power, or unfortunately how they abuse the power, like managers would do in some cases also, right? So by listening, you can level the playing field per se when it comes to certainly having a better understanding of what is being said and answering, a customer, answering a manager, or a manager answering you. But in this case, of course, if we have to listen to customers, one of the best things to do, of course, is to take notes, right? When it's written down, you retain a lot more. And when you are in sales, you need to do that as much as possible, always to take notes and understand the value of what they said. And it also is an easier way to retain the information for sure, right? So we can stay here all day, talk about certain topics like listening, and I can give you a whole bunch of lessons. But we're going to do this when we get into competency 6, which is teamwork. And and I know because I did that lesson, so I know what the material is there, and I did a whole lesson just on listening. So we're going to tackle that when I think I am giving you competency 6, so we can talk about it then, right? Again, here, wording sometimes means everything. We don't want to welcome complaints. I think I didn't change the wording. I left the lessons the way they are, but we certainly want to understand complaints and where they come from. What is the root cause of complaints? We don't want to welcome them. We don't want complaints. We need to find a way to you're not going to eliminate them, but we need to find a way to always reduce and find root causes. Why is someone complaining, right? Especially if you got a repeat issue. If you have a repeat issue in customer service, someone's not doing their job, right? Someone's really not doing their job. And this doesn't work just in customer service. Think about your daily lives or where you work or where you've worked, right? And if you see something repeat itself all the time, you go, wait a minute, didn't we just have this issue? Why are we having this issue over and over again, right? Because someone is not taking a ball here and not looking for the root cause and fixing it. And you need to do that in every department of every company. But specifically, for sure, we're talking about customer service. You don't want to have the same issue over and over again. So you need to find a way to find a root cause and solve the issue once and for all. I just want to try to speed up a little bit. Customer staff point of view, we talked about power before, and when you empower someone, you're basically giving them power and per se. So when you are in management and you're working as a manager, certainly you automatically have that power. And I'll tell you something else that a lot of people don't really realize this, but if you've taken a sales course with me, you probably know this, or probably not, is the fact that when you work in sales and you are a sales associate, when you are a sales associate and you work in retail sales, you have the power over customers. And you would say, no, that's not true, because the customer has the money, right? And the customer is the one buying. No, but what it is that you have the store and you have the knowledge, and certainly you have the negotiating skills or possibilities that you can negotiate certain things. So the power is always in the hand of the sales associate, just like in management, always. It's not, the power is never in the customer's hands, right? And the issue all the time about how you communicate with customers is that we sometimes are not supposed to show the power. We're supposed to empower the customer, just like management is supposed to empower us or empower customer service. It's the same thing for us. If we are sales associates, we need to empower the customer, make them understand that they have the power when they walk into the store. But of course, they do not, right? They do not have the power. And or else, of course, when it comes to negotiations, you're going to lose. And if you lose in negotiations in customer service in a store, that means you're breaking company policy. You're giving them something that they're not supposed to get, right? So the customer wins and you lose. That's not the way to negotiate. And most of the times you're going to pay the price by being fired or reprimanded for sure, or demoted, right? So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say about empowerment, right? It's something that when you are in management, it's easy to be powerful and to show it and to command and to demand, right? Instead of delegating, right? And instead of showing empathy, instead of understanding, instead of a big word that we use today are words that we probably never used before as much. Yes, delegation is a big word, right? We want to delegate. We want to instill power, right? Or we want to empower our employees, right? But we also want to be not necessarily, we want to be consistent, but now the word escapes me. We also want to have an understanding or a relationship with our employees that allows collaboration. And the biggest word of all today, if you are in management, if you are in a position of power like management or even a sales associate, the one word that you always have to remember is compromise, right? When you compromise, you're not necessarily giving in to whatever is being demanded from you. You're not always pushing that power to a worker that you have. But by compromising, you're making them understand that you're giving a little bit and they have to give a little bit too. So there's this collaboration that's created in a workforce. And these are words that have a lot of meaning today, and more than they've ever had before, right? Collaboration, compromise, delegation, right? Empowerment, and all of this. So language has to change. The language of how we see relationships at work have to change. Any points, any questions, or any?
Yes, Tony, I'd like to have a couple of minutes, if you allow me, regarding the empowerment of the clients. I believe you mentioned that we have to empower the customer itself. Is that right?
You've got to make them understand that, or make them feel. Of course, when you empower, you want to make them feel like they have the power to change or get whatever they want. Satisfaction, the product, the price, the deal, all of that.
Right. If you allow me to share with you a small scenario, that has something to do with abusing the empowerment. For example, some clients, and I'm not talking in general, but I'm talking some specific clients.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a client will come to tell you, okay, hey, I don't like the room, the AC is not working. Right. Obviously, he will come down the stairs to the reception, perhaps, and start to, in indecent way, raising their voice a bit, like I'm not happy, etc., etc. Then the compensation here, you might ask for upgrade to a suite, for example, right? So here there will be otherwise, right? If you say no, I'm sorry, then here he will go for TripAdvisor, media, the X hotel is so bad, etc., etc. To avoid that, you will, okay, sir, here it is. Here is the key for upgrade to a suite. Here I'm losing money because I could sell that suite room in a higher rate, right? So here I'm just trying to put it together. When the client abusing that empowerment, because yes, I need to please you as a client. So here there's something gray area. If you can just give me some clarification how we can come over this.
Well, yeah, it actually is not that gray, Nabil, really, because what's in your situation, this type of situation, what you're saying, if we're really understanding that the customer is trying to abuse of this situation by getting a better room by saying they don't like the AC or they don't like the bed, it's too soft, or the bed is too hard, whatever, right? I don't like the view or whatever, right? So, and all of this, and they start complaining, of course, and of course they'll start to threaten too. Unfortunately, customers will do that, and in today's world, of course, with social media, they can easily threaten and to a very high level. But what it comes down to is truthfulness, for sure. Is that a lot of people read customer reviews and understand that some customers will abuse a situation if they can. And I think that you have to stick to your policy. I think you have to stick to your negotiation skills and your negotiation values and how you negotiate. And certainly you can, if you find a situation is possible, it's really up to you to call it. If you find that you can upgrade the room, let's say half the hotel is empty, right? Half the place is empty and the customer's complaining about a room. You're not going to really lose a ton of money by taking that customer and moving them over to another room. So, but you still have to respect company policy. But if the hotel is full and all you've got is an upgraded room, and they want to get that room, let's say, because I'm using your example, Nabil, is you're going to be losing money. So the goal is certainly you're going to be losing, period. They win, you lose. This is not the way to negotiate, because they're going to share that information anyway to whomever will listen. Oh yeah, go to this place. All you got to do is scream and yell, and you're going to get an upgrade, right? So these are things that we hear and we know about. You talk about internet providers, how competitive internet providers are. Just to change maybe the subject a little bit, it used to be a time everybody would say, oh yeah, just call Videotron or call Bell, whomever is your provider, and just yell and scream a little bit and tell them that you'll change supplier or you'll change provider, and they'll give you what you want. Of course, this is not true. They won't give you what they want. They will negotiate with you, right? And everybody thinks, no, yeah, if you really scream and yell and you tell them that you're switching your business, they're going to give you what you want. No, they're not going to give you what you want. They're not going to go against company policy, especially on the phone, where everything is recorded and everything is followed. They're going to lose their job if they give you something that they can't offer.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So
thank you.
There's all of this going on in the background. So, like I said, if the hotel is empty, you walk in there and you see, hey, the hotel is empty. Oh, let's try to get a better room. Oh, okay. Hey, if you go see the reception, you go, our room, it's a bed, it's a bit off, whatever, right? Or if you just complain a little, they might turn around and say, okay, we'll give you another room. But we have all these rooms, right? So we're not really losing money. So I have the capability of negotiating easily, right? But if my rooms are full and all I have is a penthouse suite, there's no way you're going to get my penthouse suite because your bed is too hard or too soft, or if your air conditioning doesn't work well, we're going to fix it, right? We'll get somebody in there, we'll fix the air conditioning. We're not going to switch you off and give you another room, right?
So if I understand it well, you have to find a balance between the company policy and what's available.
It's always like that, always. You cannot have a situation where one of the two parties wins because it creates this disbalance, right? If in the case of, let's say the hotel is empty and they know this, they can see there's nobody on the beach or there's nobody next to the pool or whatever, and you're asking for an upgrade and not giving it to you, right? In a way, they win, you lose. And if you lose, you're not going to be happy. You say, you know what? I went to that hotel, the place was empty. They didn't even want to give me an upgrade. Forget it. I ain't going back, right? So you're never going to go back to that place. So they have to find compromise. They have to find a way to evaluate the situation, understand what they're doing. Of course, always staying ethical and always staying, inside the company policy, and also in the culture of the business too, whatever the business is. And they can't just give stuff away because you scream and yell.
But the problem, Tony, most of the time, if you're an associate, you'll always have a manager or a higher ups. So this kind of customers usually blackmails you, and you can't meet halfway with them until they always try to call for a manager, supervisor, or even God if they can call. Yes, I tried that. So until they squeeze all out of you, and the problem, the crazy part there is you're gonna be the one. You're doing all the best you can, but this customer is trying to get a supervisor. You try to meet halfway, but the decision would always be to the supervisor, which makes you look bad.
Well, in actual fact, it's most of the time it's the opposite. If you find a way to always try to avoid contacting supervisors, there's an issue. But there's many ways you can resolve and compromise a situation with negotiating skills. This is what I talk about, training and negotiation skills, where yes, if someone really wants to see the manager, they're going to, like you said, they're going to call everybody, scream and yell and do whatever, I mean, first of all, what kind of a customer is that? Think about that, number one, right? The value of that customer, of course, goes down, especially if they start doing that and being very aggressive in a store. A lot less value involved in that kind of a situation. And what is their situation? Why do they want this, a manager to come and talk to them just because they want a better deal? In most cases, sales associates that are well trained will find a way not to have this happen. And in most cases, if they have no choice, like you said, and the manager arrives, it's not the sales associate that looks bad. It's certainly, most of the time, it's the opposite. It's the customer that looks bad. Like, why do you have to go all through this? And then, especially depending on, of course, it all depends on what they want to do. But if the sales associate is well trained, certainly, if they think that it necessitates the calling over of a manager, okay, right? But in most cases, it really doesn't, and it's really not necessary to have managers come over and talk about certain things and want to negotiate a price and stuff like that, right? There's many ways of going around that you need to follow all the time. And if you go around and giving prices or discounts away just to give it away, well, you're losing and you're going against company policy, right? So if your manager arrives, right, and he says, oh, so did you give something? No, I gave no discount, whatever. Okay, you did well, right? You did well. But at the beginning of the day, the sales associates also have a little meeting where they're told what they can give and what they can't give, right? If there's a sale going on, they'll be told what they can negotiate and what they can't negotiate and how they negotiate it too. But usually, when it comes to negotiation skills, we don't want to give anything away. And unfortunately, we see all these huge discounts all over the place. And it's so easy to give stuff away today because of that, because of competition, and we see all these huge red numbers, discounting and all that. But this is not what we're trying to instill. This is not what we're trying to look at when we look at customer service and the way it's supposed to be, right? Cool.
Yeah, it's true. It's meet halfway, own the situation, customer handling, but sometimes it also boils up to the attitude of your supervisor.
Well, it's always the attitude of the whole company, and it's
exactly.
all the attitude, yeah,
True,
how they respect the policies and how ethical they are. Certainly, is really crucial. And even if you are the owner of the company, it's even worse. And if you break company policy and you're the owner of the company, and your employees see this, well, now you've just destroyed the foundation of your business, which is all about ethics and policy. And once you've destroyed that and you allow your sales associate to negotiate whatever they want because you did it, well, that's the end of your business, right? That's pretty much the end of your business for sure. All right, so let's keep going. I really want to get all this in, and so there's a lot of material here. So I'll just skip a couple of slides here, and we'll get to this first activity. And you'll see, you don't have to do we won't do the activities now. Once you're in your breakout rooms, you can take a look at them, and we can go through them, right? So one activity that you've got to do is 3.1. Here, please review articles provided per each company assigned to each group and present your company's customer service strategies. Okay, so we're going to do that afterwards. I'll give you each group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4 will have a different article or a different link that you have to do. So we'll get to that in a little while. So I really want to finish off the lesson, and then after that, put you in your groups and get into that information. All right. What time we got? Are we good? Okay. 7 o'clock. Okay, let's keep going. So just to finish off lesson 3, talk about feedback. We did talk about this before, how important it is to get feedback and understand customers, what they want and what they need, right? How you collect feedback, how you do surveys and all of that, and the importance of how you can change the direction the company is going to be taken, right? This is why the companies collect feedback, is to see how they're doing, but more importantly, how they can improve themselves later on, okay? So it serves as a guiding resource for the growth of your company, as I mentioned, right? Don't you want to know what you're getting right and wrong? Yes, right? So feedback is the way to keep your community at heart of everything you do, which means is that, of course, what direction your company is going to go, and how to certainly better the whole situation that you're in and as a business. And for sure, this is the direction that feedback always gives you, right? If we don't know what's right, we can't do more of it. If we don't know what's wrong, we can't do less of it. Without customer feedback, we are destined to fail. That is so true. I think I mentioned a little bit before about entrepreneurs, how they start their business. It's really all about asking questions to customers or to prospects to define the needs that they can bring as a product, as a company. And that's the only way you make customers happy, is you give them what they want, right? If you don't give them what they want, certainly they're not going to be happy, and you're not going to be happy because they're not going to be buying from you, right? So there's many ways of collecting feedback. As you see, most of the time it's got to do with forms or surveys. Of course, all websites now have so many different links that you can go to, and they ask you for all kinds of information. And sometimes, though, when you have too many avenues of feedback, it creates this almost this traffic block of some kind of too much information, and you can't see through it. And usually the best way of doing this is just having maybe a couple of ways of getting feedback. If it's a survey, if it's an online website that you have or an application, you really want to keep it simple. You certainly don't want a barrage, is the word I was looking for. You don't want a barrage of possibilities of ways of collecting feedback. You really want a couple, and that's it, right? So yeah, same thing as we just did before. Customer feedback methods, right? Surveys is always a big one. I think there's a survey that you've got to do in here, and I just want to get to it now because I want to see exactly what it's about. Because I do have something maybe that might be a little bit more interesting, and I can give you that exercise. But let me just see what this is, what this exercise does, and we'll see. So surveys always gives you information that you can create or develop new ideas or new products and new direction for companies. Those are the main things that you're trying to do when you have surveys. Yes, you want to improve the customer experience, but really most of the time it's how do I make my company better? How do I make a better product? How do I give the customer more what they need? Is always the goal in surveys. That's the goal that should always be in surveys, is to find a way to get to that point, right? You're always striving to get to that, right? So when you establish this feedback, right, you of course once you retain all this feedback, well, of course you've got to use it, right? You've got to use a survey, and you've got to understand the survey, what it says, the information. And this is one of the biggest problems with surveys sometimes, is the questions asked in a survey are not relevant, right? They don't measure anything. Some surveys, if you can see them, they really don't measure it. They just, did you like the product? Why? And sometimes the questions even is what would you change? And of course, you might think that's a very good question to ask in a survey, right? In actual fact, it's not. Think about that. Think about someone that what they would change in the product. Most of the times, of course, it's far-fetched and it's not realistic in a sense, and it doesn't really connect to the whole business itself. So some of these questions have to be led in a right direction. If they are too general, a survey loses the value of the question itself. Right? There's nothing to compare it to, or the question is too vague, and there's too many answers. Right? If you have a multiple choice survey with too many answers, it makes it too vague. Some of the best surveys are yes, answers of yes, no, or not sure. Right? It really pinpoints exactly what the issues are and gives you direction. Right? So yeah, be clear, be specific, and yes, certainly ask a lot of questions, but ask questions that are certainly valuable in the sense of you can retain or get a lot of information in a survey. Okay, so this is what I want to lead to is the next exercise, which is surveys to gauge customer satisfaction. Right here, use a survey posted in our class to build your own survey that you intend to send to your customer following his visit to your store or after he or she called for a service problem. So I think we only have 4 groups here. Situations: you went to a garage to change your tires, you called about a problem with a phone bill, you bought a new TV from a retailer, and you spent 2 nights at a hotel room. If you like, we can do this. I'm hoping that it does work, because I look at the instructions. I'm hoping it does work. If it doesn't work, I have something else I will give you, and it'll be a little bit easier to understand. Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm going to, so this is lesson 3. I still have a few slides for lesson 4, but what we should do for now is I will put you in groups now, and we'll start with this, and then we can come back and do the next lesson, and you can do that later on. And we can then discuss in your groups, when I'm there with you, the project-based learning exercises that you have to do, which you have to complete. Okay, so I'm just going to stop recording. If I can find my button. Stop that, stop recording. And